What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Talking Dogs podcast. Today we have a guest, James. Is it Wadley or Wadley?
It's Wadley.
Wadley. Okay, so James Wadley. James Wadley does the Pluss Points Coonhound training. I've let y'all know about that before in a couple videos. Good Facebook group to be in. Definitely go check that out. So I'm just going to turn this thing over to James there, and let's see, where did you kind of get started at? And let's just hear that, what kind of dogs you like running and stuff like that, I guess. We'll start there.
Yes, sir. I hunt. I'll hunt about anything, but I've hunted walkers for years and known to have walker dogs, and we I've been training them since I guess I started training dogs when I was 8, 9 years old. Got involved with it anyhow, and just was determined to train one myself, and started training, squirrel dogs, and started training dogs that way. Um, we had hounds we had that protected our chickens back then, but I grew up in Arkansas, so we needed a food source, or a constant food source. So our hounds back then were used to catch game for us, and the competition hunts were something I was very interested in too, because I believe that it showed the difference between the levels of the coon dogs, which one could catch a coon quicker. And I've always grew up on the idea that a competition hunt is a place that you show how good a coonhound you're hunting, and it's that's what the original ones, I believe, were meant for. I think the demographic of it has changed a little bit over the years, but I still believe that that's what we do at the competition hunts. I moved to Texas. I can't even recall what year, and I moved down there for work. My opportunities were thin in the state of Arkansas where I lived, and I just wanted to do more. I handled for a lot of people back then, so I was kind of a dog guy, and I always had to. If I trained a good hound, I would have to sell the dog, and I didn't care for that 100%. I dreamed someday of being able to maybe support myself in coonhounds, but I did it along the way by training good hounds and competing with them and selling them to individuals. So it kind of formed me a little bit on that behalf. That time I spent with a dog, I really needed to have some value there, either as far as for winning or have some value to if I sold it to somebody, that it was a good enough value that it didn't bother me so much to sell it, and that formed my mentality a little bit. I started out hunting for Cole McAllister, that had the Mundo dogs, and Cole, I met him when I was, I think, 10 years old. I met him and a guy named Glenn Stetler in Arkansas. He was my neighbor, and Glenn hunted for Cole a little bit, and so I kind of started out going to competition hunts with him and training dogs for him. The first couple I trained for him made really, really good dogs, but I learned a lot from Cole. And later on, I got with Buddy Gilbert and started training dogs for Buddy Gilbert and tuning dogs for Buddy Gilbert, and traveled with him quite a bit. Buddy Gilbert and I was really good friends and pretty close, and we did a lot of traveling together. But today, I take the experiences and those guys that I trained with and the values that they passed on to me. They both had totally different types of dogs, hunted different types. Buddy Gilbert opened my eyes to different types of dogs, competition style dogs, weekend warrior style dogs, hunt elimination style of a dog, and being able to identify what type of dog it is, so that when you describe one to someone who has the same mindset on competition, they realize what you're telling them in shorter words. I often have people call me all the time and they ask me, they tell me they want a good dog, and I ask them, well, what type do they want? And everybody always says one that just goes in there and trees a coon and has it. And but there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to it. You've got dogs that are called weekend warriors that put up good scores, action-packed dogs. But when the coons stop moving, they struggle quite a bit, or they'll fall flat on their face, and they're very good for 1 to 2 cast wins. Hard to beat them on that, but moving further, it just drops off. The dogs just have a hard time with it. So those type of dogs really need to go to hunts that action gets them in the very beginning. And I like that. I like that style, and I like what I call a hunt elimination style dog. To the type of dog that he can win a cast with 1 or 2 coon, and he'll do every cast that way. He's that consistent. When you cut that dog, no matter what the weather is, no matter what's going on, he's going to tree a coon. And that's what we call a cast elimination type dog. And they can go a long ways, because it don't matter if you hunt 7 or 8 nights, he still trees those 2 coons, no matter what. And that's really that's really the 2 styles of dogs. There's some other little styles in there, and but I don't know if everyone knows the 2 different styles. It's just an explaining feature, I guess, in dogs. But and I think many people do not know what they'll be happy with. When it comes to a dog. That the Pluss Points podcast, I started posting on that, and I've always had people call me and talk to me about dogs. And I moved so far down in Texas that I don't get to travel the hunts like I used to when I lived in Arkansas. I've kind of moved myself out of there until I can retire and maybe move back up north and be involved with it, every weekend. Maybe again, that's my dream right now, retiring and doing that. I hope I still have the ability to do it, but that's my dream anyhow. I have different guys. I help them with the training of their dogs or getting their dogs ready for hunts. They send them to me, and I take care of them. Dogs that burn out, I have guys that send them to me, and I fix the dogs and send them back to them, and where they're fresh again. It's a service I've done for different friends over the years, and it's been very, very rewarding to me. I personally like training a very hard to train type dog. I prefer a pup that's not just the easiest starting pup, but I like a very motivated, high spirited young dog, and I like taking it. And making a cast elimination type dog out of it. And the harder starting dogs often make that hunt elimination type of dog, but many people do not have patience with them to be able to turn that dog into what he needs to be. A focused success comes from focus in life, and to be laser beam focused is how a person is able to, no matter what they're dealing with, being poor, being not a winner, being whatever in life, it's the one thing that will make everyone successful that can take you there. That focus is the one thing I've seen in dogs that overcome um, great deficits and be able to win. Um, often the real focused dogs don't start as easy as another dog. And a lot of dogs that start really, really easy are more thinkers. The weekend warrior dogs are more thinkers. That's what gets them in trouble in later casts because they get to overthinking it. It's kind of like we've got a new society nowadays that are sitting around and overthinking things. When we overthink if we're a boy or we're a girl or some of these things that are in political points, we're overthinking stuff. When we have a hound that overthinks, he doesn't know what if the tone's to go hunting, if it's to come back, if he should cross the water, stay with us, and there's just too many things for the dogs to think about. Or we talk to them while they hunt. Things that keep these newer hounds distracted. They have a hard time producing when the elements are very challenging. It often takes a very focused dog, but a focused dog, you're not going to get them until they tree. And I think some people aren't willing to do that give and take on having a focused dog. But anytime you deal with focus, you deal with levels of success. So the higher level of focus that a dog can get, the higher level of success one will have with them, or the higher winning percentage that a person has. I often talk on the Facebook page about downtime, about starting pups, about focus, about teaching dogs to have different things. My idea about a dog is I work very hard. I feed these dogs. I give them the very best care. And I only really ask one thing out of these dogs. I ask them to leave me, go hunting, and produce a coon. And I allow it to be that simple in these dogs. It's not simple for those dogs in competition when we add all of the stress, the pressure from other dogs, all those other things. We can train a dog and hunt a dog by itself, but when we get in a competition hunt, we have a lot of added pressure. The pressure of competition is so great that it'll make a handler sick at his stomach. It'll make him nervous. And that creates a big nervousness in our hounds as well. It makes our dogs nervous. They're just as nervous as we are when they're at a competition hunt. When we're nervous, we overthink situations. When it could be simple, just go get a coon, let the outcome of the hunt be whatever it's going to be. And that mentality is the best mentality to have, especially going into a Final Four cast. If we overthink a Final Four cast or think that we can predetermine it, it's very difficult to do that. I've learned over the years to just, as I've gotten older, to just not worry about it. I don't care how my dog looks in another person's eyes. I just care where he and I are on our training and our focusing and our working together. A dog that hunts too hard isn't working sometimes real well with the handler. It's good to have a dog that considers where you are on that cast and what you're doing. Sometimes you get that, sometimes you don't. I've seen dogs that knew where I was and the cast was the whole time. And so they hunted within, hearing distance of all time. It's good good to see that feature in a dog, but they're all different. Um, I I I have on that on the training site. I start dogs by themselves. It's been years and years and years before I started a dog with another dog. Uh, I don't like a dog, particularly like taking a dog and competition training it that has been started with another dog. Often when we start a dog with another dog, the dog learns by mocking, learns by following. So we don't teach that dog how to learn. We just expect a dog to naturally pick up learning by copying from another dog. To me, it's like taking a child and not teaching them how to read or write, not teaching them anything at home, and just send them to school and let the population uh, train them, and then hopefully they get it, hopefully they don't. To me, there's no control over education in that process. Um, and I know it to be true because many of the people I see that start hounds that way, they have a very low success rate. They tend to talk bad about the newer breed of dogs, how the newer breed, um, the numbers are low on being able to train them. And I just don't agree with that because every pup that I raise nowadays, these pups will run and they will tree coons. Now, they may not bark a lot on track, some of them, but they will tree coons. And then there's some that track a lot that may not tree as many coons, but they will tree a coon nowadays. Back when I was young, people hunted a pair of dogs, and the reason why we always had a pair of dogs is because you had one that could trail it and one that can tree it, and people grew up believing that a pair of dogs is the way to hunt. And I remember the my mentors and the older people that I hunted with always saying, "Boy, I wish I had one dog that can do it both." And those wishes and those dreams have come true today. And people complain about it because these dogs out of these litters, the biggest part of these dogs will be able to make a dog that can do the running and they can do the treeing. Now, they may not cold track for an hour, but I don't know how many people have the time or the focus to allow a dog to trail for 1 hour, to be able to get treed, especially a competition dog. A dog needs to trail when the conditions are tough, and they need to treat coons according to conditions. And a dog is smart enough to realize what the conditions are. They just need a trainer to teach them how to determine what style of coon they need to be trying to treat, because there's multiple styles of coons. You've got hot coons, you've got layup coons, you've got setting coons, acorn feeding coons, cornfield coons. There's so many different types of coon that a person can treat. These coons that are in the berries, hackberry feeding coon, a lot of different types of coons, and those dogs have to go back and forth on their adjustment a little bit to adjust to what type of coon that they have to treat. Dogs that can't do that are one-dimensional. Let's say that if the dog is an ambusher, people complain about an ambushing dog, but an ambushing dog has a coon and requires less hunting. And so if that dog just stays treeing that one particular type of coon, it's because the dog trained itself on how to find that kind of coon. It's one of your easier kinds of coons to tree, but a dog has to move. So a moving dog will naturally learn to be an ambusher. And but that's a self-trained dog that's trained itself. And taking an ambusher and teaching it how to treat a different type of coon gives that dog another type of coon that it can treat. But that's all taught and taught in a series of repetition and of training and putting in certain situations and controlling that situation a little bit and forcing that dog to tree it. And then it becomes a habit for the dog to tree a different type of coon. So there are ways of doing that. And I believe these dogs nowadays can be taught anything. It's amazing how easy it is to teach these hounds nowadays. Back when I was young, these hounds weren't smart enough to learn. They were very gamey. They run a lot of off game, and some would never be smart enough to switch over, and some would, but they would have to be the type of dog that wanted to fall out of a pack. And a lot of these hounds come from dogs that were quitters on fox races or long races, and they would quit and they would tree. And we breed a lot of those dogs together, and we get dogs that will quit hard-working, the hard work. It's a genetic breeding of dogs that don't work hard for the game. They're dropout dogs. And so a lot of these hounds that we breed are, bred of those drop out of pack hounds. And but there's some training ways where people train dogs and they let them run off game until they're tired of it, and then they get wise to it and they start treeing as well. So another way to get a dog to start treeing. It's an older way. I particularly have never been able to train that way because of the country that I'm in. I've never been able to let dogs run off game, so I just not as versed in that way of training. I've become versed in a way of training that the dog needs to be focused on the game, stay focused, and just go do that. And then when I put them in pressure, put them with dogs that are doing it to teach them how to be focused on producing that coon and no matter what. And I've had success in training dogs of good value that way, and dogs that could win a very high percentage of the cast when they go to it, because when pressure's on them and dogs are shutting down, they don't tend to shut down. They just move to the next coon and move to the next coon.
Yeah, man.
There's
That's a lot of great stuff, and I'm telling you guys, this is exactly why I thought he'd be really good to have on the podcast, because one thing that I push on the channel a lot is there's so much like analytical stuff that you have to pay attention to when we're training, or what goes into training, and like focus is a huge one. I know what you said, you prefer to start them solo. I also, prefer to start a solo dog as well. I probably definitely haven't been training dogs as long as you have. Well, that's a lot of excellent points and a lot of excellent stuff there. What are some of the things that you think are key in training to boost focus?
Now starting them by themselves is the first foundational focus thing, and that is why I prefer a dog that's started by itself, because the dog knows the trainer, and it's been taught how to hide and seek. And what I call hide and seek is you take the pup and then you take the drag and you hide it, somewhere in a tree, and the dog goes and finds it. And you make it a habit of you hiding that and the dog going and finding it. And then later you do it with a cage coon. Then you turn the cage coon loose. And you continue this game of hide and seek, and you make it fun for the dog. If a person starts his foundation that way, that dog is solely focused on finding that coon for that fun. And that is their foundation. if their foundation is following another dog, copying another dog, and that's what their fun foundation is, when we think about back home and with mom, with dad, with the family, we think about the taste of the food, the fun things in our youth that we enjoyed. If we didn't enjoy it, we think about the non-enjoyment of it. But that focus that is taught by that one-on-one training is what we keep throughout the whole training process. So if we add an element of one dog barking at the tied to the tailgate, that dog's job is still the same thing. Now we added an element of sound, and I never teach a dog to ever hunt toward the sound of a dog. A dog hunting toward the sound of the dog is a very bad habit for competition hunting these days. And it always has been, unless you want the dog to back the dog. And so if you start a dog solo, he's never going to build the want to be like, if you watch a lot of dogs in training, when a dog gets treed, it's like a tractor beam for dogs that have been started with another dog. It don't matter if you took them and singled them out and handmade them and forced them into be independent afterwards, and you shocked them for backing, and you did all those things against the way that you started them as a puppy, took all that happiness away from them. Those are dogs that will eventually burn out. They will burn out, and they will get tired of the hunts someday. And that dog started by itself, it's much more possible that dog, if you get onto him for paying attention to that dog has now added, instead of me and that dog playing hide and seek, he added the element of another dog interfering with our game. And when I get onto that dog and let him know that that dog does not interfere with our game and our goal and our job, and that dog learns to go tree a coon, now I can start introducing elements of leading that dog out from that dog's tree while that dog's treeing, tie that dog out there, squall, and let that dog put pressure on that dog where that dog does not pay attention to this other barking dog. And I start training that dog later on based off of another dog barking, and I break my dogs off game by letting another dog go do it and cutting that dog to it. So I always, from that very foundation of just me and you, I break any other element of another dog, and that dog automatically relates back to it's just me and you. Don't think about none of those that's out there. Don't think about the bad kids over there. Don't think about the what those people are doing. Stay on focus. Stay on track to your goal. If that makes sense. And that solo is what starts that focus throughout that training.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely how I feel about it too. I've went through the rounds as a kid, trying to pack dogs together and things like that. What I noticed that when you start dogs under other dogs, when you try to solo them out, some of them just come out the other end. It's like they need to be completely started again because they ain't learned nothing or they won't go without another dog. And then I also realized that when you start them solo without other dogs, they tend to not care about another dog, and they tend to stay independent in a good way, not like an unhealthy kind of way, but in a good way for that dog to be independent. It's not going to get distracted or pulled off track by other dogs, and it's going to do its business. And like you're saying there, it's a good foundation to keep their focus rolling because they stay on that single mind track of I got to go find a coon, and it's a good way to think about it. Starting them solo, definitely playing the hide and seek thing is really was what puts that in them. And man, that's some good stuff, man. And so I know kind of touched on it, talked about different styles of dogs. One thing that I kind of talked about on my channel a little bit is like big game dogs and more of a coonhound bred type dog. Do you think there's something to that, or no?
As far as a big game dog versus a coon dog, bred hound.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm trying to understand that better. I used to sell a lot of dogs back in the past to bear hunters, and a bear hunter, um, bear hunters, um, the dogs of the past hit the bear hunters a lot better probably than maybe some of them do now. I knew that the bear hunters that I knew back in the day, they wanted a black-footed dog, a black-mouthed dog, a dog that their pads would really hold up to those real long running. And that's disappearing in these dogs. You don't see it much anymore. That really tough bodied dog has really been bred out of them. So I don't know how the bear hunters feel about that nowadays, but I know in the past that's the type of dog that they wanted. They wanted a dog that maybe wasn't the best coon dog and that we used for competition, but they really wanted a good track dog or a very fast dog, but they wanted a durable type of dog, and those are going away little by little, the durability of dogs. And there's something to it. I have people ask me all the time about black pads, black mouths, black eyes, the really dark eye features in a hound, and it does make a difference. I mean, it really does. The bear hunters knew, and they knew what would hold up. The pink pads cut easy on a dog. Now, those dogs are much smarter, easier to train than them older dogs were. But training a bear dog is much easier than training a coon dog. Training a bear dog, the dog does learn by copying often because you hunt them in a pack, and a bear dog cannot fight at a tree. If they fight and a dog goes down, the other dogs will kill them. Dogs can't fight in a pack. That's not good. There's a dead dog if a pack of dogs gets in a fight, or two dogs get in a fight within a pack of dogs. Whichever one goes down will be dead. And so a lot of these dogs are bred independent. We accept a little more aggressiveness in these dogs nowadays in competition. So a lot of these families of dogs have aggressiveness in them that back in the day we used to, we thought that you killed those dogs or you killed those type. That if you breed for independence and that's what you breed for, you're going to get a dog that realizes and knows that is my tree. That's my tree. I made that tree. I don't go to your tree. I don't go over there and listen to you. I don't go over there and pay attention to whatever you're doing. This one is mine. I worked it up. I earned it. It's mine. Yeah. And you can't expect that dog with that mindset, if he gets pushed, to defend himself. And so we breed that nowadays in competition dogs. And another thing, if people don't want that, why does every pedigree, when we compare them and look at them, why is the only bragging feature on a pedigree Grand Knight, Platinum, Gold Champion? Why is that? A pleasure hunter will go buy Gold Champion, Platinum Champion, and buy all that to have talking points when the genetic features are of a competition dog. So the genetics between bear dogs and competition dogs have the line, I believe, has gotten further apart over the years.
Oh, definitely. I feel the same way about it, and I've talked about it on the channel too. Is there is definitely a difference between a competition dog and lines of dogs that have been made for comp hunts or bred out of a lot of comp stock.
Yes.
it changes them. And like you were saying there, about the black mouth thing. I know I was always told as a kid, by my grandfather, black mouth dogs got a lot of gaminess and a real game, and that
Mm.
they'll do good. And that's why I would imagine, if that's true, then that would be why they, have it in them to put a bear up a tree. You got to have some type of grit in there. And I was listening to some other podcasts talking about the white feet thing. Never really heard much about that growing up about the feet, but the mouth for sure. Uh, but yeah, man, there's so many things that have been floating around for so long about the comp style dogs and the big game dogs, and I kind of guess the older type dogs would be the older kind of coon dog too, and the bear dogs and big game dogs. But we have a clear cut, I think, in a lot of these dogs. Some are bred specifically for big game. They're way bigger bodied. They're way more durable,
Mm.
like you're saying. Probably a lot more cold nosy type. And the competition dogs, I think, are starting to lean a lot more towards hot nose dogs, especially with the Walker dog stuff. Uh, Man, there's just a lot. There's so much that can be unpacked when it comes down to breaking down this stuff. And I tell you one thing, I'm glad to have people come on the podcast to talk about it because usually I try to sit down and unpack this stuff by myself, and it's a rough one. But I think we were talking a little bit about the competition style stuff. You're do comp hunts and you got started in comp hunts and things like that. Do you still comp hunt?
I do. I'm at a hunt today. I'm at the White River sitting in my truck right now, and just came out of the cabin out here to talk with you, and we're gonna hunt a pro sport hunt tonight. I've right now I'm hunting a dog that won the CHKC World Hunt, Neosho River Ralph, and I have a female out of a bloodline that I have. I I have been breeding some dogs for a long time, and what I've done is I've taken dogs that I could get to a 90% cast winner. Dogs, they're black-footed, black-mouth type coonhounds, and I've been crossing them over each other for a long time, and I've got a female I have out of my family that I'm hunting as well, and I've got a good crossbred dog I'm hunting. I'm trying to half walker, half blue tick. Been training him for a while, and he's a good dog.
Those seem to
But
be good crosses these days.
they are. These dogs have been bred pure for quite a long time. The dogs that trailed back in the days were all really crossed up, crossbred dogs. You'll get more trailing with crossbred dogs, and especially when you put blue into them, they'll trail a little. They'll be a little trail minded. Now there's a difference in trail minded and track minded. That's two
Yeah,
different
yeah. I just had a video on it.
different things.
That was my last video I just did. I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this because it's kind of the subject I'm on with my viewers and things like that right now. So definitely, I want to hear what you have to think about that.
Yeah, there's dogs that want to pace themselves that isn't in a race. Their mind doesn't work that way. They like trailing something, being a little more patient, and a dog that's more patient will take more time. Will choose tracks that take more time. Dogs that are less patient are gonna look for that quicker, more instant gratification. People are the same way. You have people that go get it. People that go get a job with a company and they realize in 25 years they'll get a retirement. And you have many people that want to go maybe be a contractor and get that instant gratification, quicker amounts of money in, when in the long run, it'll all could work out to be the same way. One may have more than the other. It doesn't matter. It's the steady consistency of either one of them that really matters at the end of the day. But there are dogs that don't that are subject to track more. What it is they are choosing that particular type of coon to treat. When there is coon you can ambush, there are coons that are lay up. There are coons of other fashions that are out there in the woods that those dogs can treat. They just particularly are interested in that one type of coon. And I believe that every hound can learn to deal with the different types of coons, but some of them just some of those trailing hounds, the problem with them nowadays is if they are never taught to move, they will have too much downtime for a competition hunter, or too much. They take too much time, so a lot of that breeding has been. People have bred away from it a little bit because it seems like they don't get treed maybe enough because we have to go to work the next day, and that time, people's time has gotten more valuable than it used to be. People who maybe don't hold a regular job or are retired, they have that time, so they would actually, talk about maybe having that type of dog. But I believe that most of these hounds can learn to do that, or these different fashions. But some don't have a mindset for it. They just don't. They don't have the personality to do it. And but a tracking dog does that. A dog that can run something and trail something is something totally different. That's a dog that's interested in pushing something. It's a different mindset of a dog. He wants to push something. He wants to make it go. He wants to do that. And there's dogs that do that. They're driving dogs, and they like driving something, driving it. They just got a different mindset. And when you train dogs with those different mindsets, you kind of notice how they think a little bit. So you got dogs that want to drive something. You got dogs that want to be patient and trail something. And then you got dogs that just want to find them in a tree. It's bird dogs. And the more bird dogs we've bred into these dogs, the more we've gotten that. And that's where the pink has come from in these hounds. Came from the bird dog.
That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, like some trail type dogs, like you're saying, the type of coons that they like to push and get on and get after. It's like they're just like locking on to a track and holding a track. And
yeah, they do.
It's like that's what they want to do. They're not worried about getting it up a tree. They're not worried about bumping it. They're worried about just running that track. And that's and driving them too. So that's something there in itself. A dog that wants to push something around. It wants to bump it and push it and bump it and push it.
Yes.
That's something totally on itself. And I think
that's what the wipeout dogs do. People tell me that they're track dogs. They are pushing dogs. They're pushers. They're not cold trailers. They're pushers. Yes. And most people have that incorrect.
I think that's pretty neat to come across that right there, because now that you say that, that makes a lot of sense, because you'll get that out in the woods, and I think a dog that wants to push something is way more apt to keep you out there for a long time if they're good at pushing. If they're not if they're good at pushing something and keeping it on the ground and not making it go up, they'll keep you out there for a long time just bumping around. And then a cold trailing dog just sticks right on the track, and you're gonna get there when it gets there. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing about a dog that can do hard work on the ground, we as coon hunters respect that. There's an amount of respect for the amount of work that dog did. And we all know that takes hard work. So we have an element of respect there, coon dog respect in that. And but we can take that too far sometimes too. But it's nice to see that kind of work in a dog.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely appreciate a dog that can stick a track and move good, decently, and you can tell they're going point A, point B, and not, they're going from a track to a tree. Might not be the fastest in the world, but they stuck to it. That's a good. I like that. I can appreciate that fact about a dog. I don't like I guess just discovered that with the driving and pushing around thing. I don't know if I really care for that watching a dog, because it's like the tracks can get wonky, they get a little messy. You run them all over here and there.
So that's your most accurate dog.
Yeah, because they're right on it.
That's your most accurate dog, hands down. And so ambushing is a derivative of that.
Yep, I got you. Yeah, and one thing that I was talking about, channel, I had a blue dog one time. Um, cut, give him a cutout. He would never let it go up a tree. You could just watch him. He'd get up a little bit, you throw it down. Get up a little bit, throw it down. He didn't want it to go up the tree. And I think that some of these dogs, they wanted to keep it on the ground. I think some of these dogs get out there in the woods and they do that same kind of thing, and you'll think, oh, he fell a tree. Nope, he moved. He fell a tree. Nope, he moved. He's pulling it off the tree and making it run.
Yeah. These dogs are amazing. All these dogs have different personalities, different. That's the thing about buying and selling dogs or everything. That is a bad business. And the reason why is because it's like people. You've got to get with the right people and the right spirit that you like it and can be around. It's hard to find dogs that we like. And for the individual person, it's about like finding friends sometimes. And if I get along with a lot of dogs, or different dogs, that we have a common goal or a common plan, and we're able to work together. But it's tough to find like the spirits that match up and the personalities that match up sometimes in a dog. I'll sell one that we don't match very well, and if I know somebody that is what they're looking for, man, if I get that dog to them, that it's like a match made in heaven. It's funny, and life should be about the fun, the good, everything else. And I don't like selling a person a dog that they have a negative experience with it. So I just I like placing dogs rather than just selling dogs to people, and because it should be good experiences. We should all gift each other in life with a good gift, a good experience, with the things that we say should be, hopefully be of value to somebody to improve their life or to improve their success, because success improves our lives for us. Sure makes things better when it's tough at home or tough within the family or anything else. They're tough at work.
Definitely. And that's one thing I say on my channel all the time is, if you find a dog that you jive with and a dog that you get along with and you're on the same page with, it is so much smoother of an operation. I mean, the ball just rolls effortlessly a lot of the times because you have like a intuition or whatever you want to call it with this dog, and it just rolls. You know what they're wanting to do, they know what you're wanting to do, and it just makes for such a more easy time. And like you were saying, if we get around and hunt with people that we don't click with ourselves, a lot of the times what'll happen is you get all these cross wires, right? So we might like the dog, but they're kind of the people that we're hunting with we're not so fond of, and it's like they're training that dog that way. Is that dog really that way, or is that because this person trained it and he's a little bit different than me? So finding people that have the same kind of mindset, training dogs and hunting dogs and stay on the same page, and then they got dogs that they like, and everybody gets along, and everything's smooth, and there's not a whole lot of hiccups. You probably found the right place and found the right kind of dogs, and if everybody's working out and going together well, that's one huge aspect of it. I mean, you can do it the other way, and dealing with a lot of taking in secondhand dogs, or dogs that people just chalk up and throw away, and picking up those dogs with all these issues and all these problems. Of course you're going to have a little bit of rougher time, but one thing you said in the beginning of the podcast was you like training a dog that is a little bit harder to train. I'm the same kind of way in that sense, so I always kind of like picking up these secondhand dogs and pushing them around to be something.
Yes.
And then we go, one thing I wanted to touch on here is keeping it simple. You said that too. That's one thing that I've said to you, man. If we can keep it simple and smooth, it just goes better. And uncomplicating things for a dog, it can put A and B together by itself a lot of the times. Just be the middleman and get it there. And it kind of works out that way. One thing I did want to pick your brain on that you said is when you're out there on a cast. Now this makes a lot of sense. When you're out there on a cast, some dogs don't care where you are, and other dogs will be a little bit mindful about where you're at in the cast adjacent to them. So when we're talking about deep and lonely dogs, you think that's got something to do with how they're relating back to you in the cast, or if they're paying attention to what you got going on a little bit, or what?
Well, often we're hard on a dog about going hunting and putting distance between me and them. That, a dog can take that a bunch of different ways. But the best thing for a dog often when I'm training him is to get away from me, because I may not be acting like me and him are best friends every time I see him. And then some dogs just have a desire to just put a little ground in there too. There's a give and take with all these dogs. Um, I've had dogs that started out to where they wanted to loop back around you and do things like that naturally. And then after I got onto them and got to pushing them, they started putting more ground so I couldn't sneak up on them and ambush them in the woods and do things like that to them. And but then they got to finding that naked tree coon that they know that you can look at. And what happens is when those dogs tree that ambush type coon, they feel our heart and they feel how we feel when we go in and excited because it's on the outside. And those dogs feed off of that. And they'll start going harder and faster to please you because they feel you and read you when you come in to those trees. And so I've learned that I have to be careful about my feelings going into ambush trees. Often I don't shoot them coons out to a dog. I shoot only coons out that they trail. But if you feed them ambush coons, you will create a monster. And they'll put more distance because you're awarding them for that each time. Once a dog starts ambushing, I don't shoot them coons anymore. I take them on to teach them a different type of coon after that, and that's how I accomplish that.
So that's a pretty good thing. And one thing that I've gathered talking to you here is that you're somebody that completely and totally understands the communication between dogs and people. It's actions and reactions, right? So, like, you're not shooting ambush coons down. The dog's gonna go, he's not shooting these, I'm gonna try something else. And when it does something you like, then you shoot it out to him. And he goes, oh, well, if I do it this way, it comes down. If I do it this way, it doesn't come down. Or in all facets of the training, and it's kind of like you can teach a dog something over a long period of time through
Yes.
through reactions to what they're doing. And
Yes.
it doesn't always have to be like this big, huge, oh, I'm gonna zap him on 100 and lay him on the ground for 5 minutes every single time the dog messes up. It can be like, oh, okay, well, you want to do this over here, I'm not gonna cut you here anymore. And then when you do it right, we'll try it again. And it just like hit the ball back and forth with the dog and it to understand, and you can teach them over a long period of time to be one way or be another. And I think training that way is the way I like to train as well. It's so much more rewarding when the dog does click it right because you took the patience to talk to the dog the way it needs to be talked to and communicated training the way you're supposed to, and then the dog understands it, and you just have that one more deeper understanding between you and your dog, and it's all the better. And
Yes, sir.
and like you said, one thing here too is like every time I see my dog in the woods, I'm not going to be his best friend, but we can't uh, completely destroy that camaraderie between us and the dog because then we cause real problems, in my opinion, because the trust has to be there. And some dogs got a paper thin line, and other dogs are a 10-foot brick wall. You'll never break it. But some dogs are just that sensitive about certain things, and once you disconnect, it's disconnected. And I think that's what happens a lot is people just disconnect. But we got about 4 minutes left. I hope everybody listening has really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed talking to you. I'd love to have you on again. I think we'll wrap it up
Yes,
here in
sir.
about. I'd love to wrap it up here in about next 4 minutes. You got anything before we close out?
Uh, yes, sir. These dogs are what we make them, make them into be, and we can. The type of coons that we feed them are they react off of us. They look for our reaction. Those dogs hunt because of us, and they will eventually figure out what we want them to do through a series of repetition, like you had said. A person that's not good at getting that across may not be as good a dog trainer as somebody that can. But that is what the difference is them getting their point across and holding them to repetition. Um, but anybody can do it. I've seen young men get involved that were just good at training dogs. And people are amazing. Dogs are amazing. Um, we um, we just got to look at it in a positive way. These dogs are so much better to train than they used to be. If people had to go back in time, they wouldn't like it. I promise you.
Oh
They
yeah.
just they're so much better nowadays.
Yep. Oh, I 100% agree with you. I mean, even 10 years ago, the dogs, some of them you come across them, you just go, you couldn't teach that dog nothing. You can't tell right from
Yes.
wrong. It's doing what it's gonna do regardless of you or anybody else. And I mean, they came a long way. But
Yeah.
I really greatly appreciate you coming on, man. I'm glad we got it figured out and set up. Like I said, I'd love to have you on for another one, maybe here in a couple weeks or so. But thanks everybody at home for tuning in, and y'all keep them treed.